What is one country you will gladly visit again? Popfanboy3 said. Shamelessly scrolling until I see my country. The second account said. Been a few times as well, always blown away by how beautiful the country is. Dublin is worthwhile and people should definitely visit, but getting out of the city and exploring the Irish countryside, road tripping to cool locations around the country and talking with locals in pubs is an amazing experience. People are friendly and the weather in the summer and early autumn can be pretty good. Another LOL Annan said. Greece. Honestly, those small, less touristy islands were magical. I didn't realize places like that actually existed in the world. Pristine beaches we essentially had to ourselves, friendly locals, and amazing restaurants that always brought some sort of liquor with the check. Dynasty 2201 said. Been twice, Tokyo, Kyoto and Yokohama. 100%. Arguably the best country I've ever been to, but wouldn't want to live there given the work culture and sorry it sounded like you said $1,000 a month for this small place. Cost of rent. Getting there can be expensive, a good $1,000 by yourself for 2 weeks with flights and accommodation. But it's cheap and super efficient to get around, the food is relatively cheap and everywhere and always fantastic. Noticeably cleaner than anywhere else you'll go to. You need to head to the countryside for proper Japan though. Tokyo is an explosion for the senses. Waza365 said. Egypt does have a ton of genuinely fascinating things to see but they do have some issues in how they handle their tourism industry. Harassment etc. is definitely common. I've been 3 times to 6 different cities. I don't really recommend Sharm el-Sheikh, it's pretty much like any of the popular beach holiday destinations you can go to in Europe with lots of Western restaurants etc. but with the harassing locals. Taba was really cool and quite unknown. It's a great location to get day trips to Israel, Jordan, and maybe Saudi Arabia, as well which we took advantage of. Along the Nile we went to Cairo, Abu Simbel, Luxor and Aswan. Cairo is a big city, so you have to go into it expecting that with more noise than most cities. But it's also got by far the best history in the country and the Cairo Museum plus pyramids is probably the best combo for history lovers you can experience in a single city. I can't think of another close to it. The other 3 have some cool stuff to see and are generally quieter. Abu Simbel was dead when we visited. If you do decide to go, it has to be a private tour guide. The tour groups drag you around the interesting stuff to take you to a papyrus or carpet shock for 3 hours. That's not a joke. It actually happened and my mum I remember being especially pissed. So pay the premium or if you're fortunate to have an Egyptian friend, see about going with them. Paying all their expenses is probably cheaper than a private guide anyway. I don't want to sound like a snob by saying get a private tour guide, but I don't think it's the kind of place you want to be on your own and not know the language, especially Cairo and as I said before the group tours are a joke. Cactus Boy Scout said. Yep. I visited 3 or 4 times and it never gets old. Every city-town region is full of beautiful places, history, amazing food, and friendly people. Plus they have a good train system which makes getting around easy and affordable. Seemed like every town had a unique food history and cherished local dishes drinks. And unlike most touristy places I've visited, the locals seemed genuinely friendly and happy to talk to a tourist. Every day someone was offering me sincere advice on things to do see try. The Mailman 123 said. I spent a month in the Balkans and loved every moment. Specifically Serbia, Bulgaria, Estonia, Albania, Kosovo, and Montenegro. Everyone is so nice and the nature is beautiful and all the food is so good. I only went because it was the only area that would let Americans in due to the pandemic but I am so glad I did. It was an amazing experience in my new favorite region. Pigfish15 said. Came here to say Ireland. We rented a car from Dublin and stayed at a working farm in Kilkenny for several days. Then using the map that came with the rental car, checked out a bunch of off-the-beaten-path places. The people were by far the friendliest, good-humored, relaxed individuals. I will 100% go back someday. Highlights: Locust Farm Guesthouse, Mahone Falls Hook Lighthouse, Dingle Peninsula, Mitchellstown Caves, Dirty Nelly's Pub at Bunratty Castle. Desconnectado said. Motherfucking Swiss, love the country and the people though. I have an acronym for situations like this, motherfucking Swiss. I hate these people. You park a bit crooked, but still inside the lines, and the neighbors call the police? MFS. You're training for a triathlon, cycling top speed, and get passed by a man in a suit on a mountain bike? MFS. A rare, homeless man hits you up for change, and it turns out that he speaks 5 languages? MFS. You're meeting friends in a strange town and your phone dies, so you ask in bars and hotels whether you can use theirs, and every single person looks at you like an alien. They can't even comprehend the level of disorganization that would result in an unexpectedly dead phone, and all refuse you help, thinking it must be some kind of trick? MFS. You're applying for an apartment with a garden, and ask if you can plant in it too. You know, some tomatoes, a pumpkin, whatever. The Corbusier-looking motherfucker sucks his teeth and then finally says perhaps, if you can prove geometrically that these plants would be elegant additions to the overall theme of the space. MMMFFFFSSSS. Climbing a terrifying ridge and get passed by a heavily pregnant woman, annoyed at your slowness. MFS. Desconnectado said. Use the bones from your chicken to make stock and get greeted with confused scorn. What is this guy, poor? MFS. Edit. I've been collecting these. Referred to, depending on the language, as either a foreigner or a stranger. Ask to be called an immigrant, which carries far less stigma. Whoa, PC police. Fucking foreigners tell us how to speak? Forget it. MFS. Hear about the bar, which used to be cool, but is now filled with students and foreigners. Oh, you mean people like me? MFS. Fire needs to be lit, shed needs to be built, any physical task needs to be done properly? Ask the Canadian. MFS. The bar closes at 12 o'clock. At 11:55 the bartender announces last call. At 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds the last patron leaves the door, and at 12 hours, 0 minutes, and 1 second the police appear. MFS. You hike up to a high alpine cabin. The other, Swiss, climbers, in perfect unison, and without talking about it, sit down to eat, consume their bread, soup, and cheese in the same order, start their vomiting together, finish at the same time, go in shifts to brush their teeth, and, in total synchronicity hit the sack at precisely 10 o'clock. The next day, without alarms, every person steps out of bed at 6 o'clock, eats breakfast, and is gone by 7 o'clock. You hang out until noon to soak up the incredible scenery and the sole staff member subtly mocks your hiking plans with his eyebrow and tone. Zekal de la Forcla in Zos boots. MFS. Desconnectado said. We should get moving if we're going to catch that train. MFS. What? Why? The train leaves in 13 minutes and it's only a 7-minute walk, or 9.5 if you stop to buy cigarettes. Hey, can I talk to you about a trip to Canada in January? Okay, it's a bit early for flights and stuff but it pays to think in advance I suppose. Wait. January of what year? MFS. 2015. Swiss bus. Let's meet at the hotel in Munich, 300 km away, at 8:25 p.m. And we did. You buy some lard, smoked bacon, meant to be eaten uncooked, at the farmer's market. It's good raw, but you want to try it fried. Your coworker smells it from his office, suspects what you're up to, and bursts into the kitchen yelling you cannot do this. MFS. The used bike is 485 francs. I offer 400. Long stare. My price, I think, reflects the actual quality of the frame, components, and labor. MFS. I'm from Canada, have you been? Oh, on a small trip, I spent 1 month by bicycle in Quebec, and then bought a motorhome and drove to Vancouver. What a long drive. I loved the open prairies, and then sold the motorhome and spent the next week skiing. Whistler was nice but I prefer Chamonix for the après-ski culture. Tell me, is the climbing in Squamish as good as they say? And how do you compare Big White with Whistler? And do you prefer New York, Montreal, or San Francisco? I found things to love about each place. I've never been to any of those places. MFS. People on the train begin to grumble and get exasperated. I look at my watch. We're 3 minutes late. MFS. Conrad Birdybird said. Thailand's got it all. Wanna explore party in a big city? BKK can be a good time. Wanna go explore some nature stuff? Kongbari is a great time, with a cool little party street where you can meet other travelers, Wanna explore some caves and drive through hills to witness some of the most gorgeous sights you'll ever see? Chiang Rai is worth a visit. Wanna be a bit of a scumbag? Pattaya is only a few hours from BKK. It also has some okay beaches. Wanna check out the islands? Koh Chang is beautiful. Down a peninsula on the other side you can experience Koh Phangan, famous for its full moon parties and just parties in general. Wanna go to a more low-key island and do some snorkeling or even get your scuba certification? Koh Tao is right there. Then there's Phuket and Krabi on the west side. That's where you're gonna find a lot of luxury resorts, and there's some decent nightlife. Traveling around is easy and cheap. I took a 12-hour sleeper train when traveled down the peninsula. It was awesome. I think I paid like $5. I slept like a baby and when I woke up we were there. Chiang Mai is a backpacker's paradise. I live here now and times are hard. BC COVID is pretty bad right now. Just waiting for it to ease up as more people are getting vaccinated, and then I'll be excited to travel to a new place. Dartsearl said, Japan is a great place to visit. As a visitor, it's generally stress-free. The public transport lines up, the hotels remember your reservation, and everything just sort of works in a reliable manner. There's little crime to worry about, little in the way of stress, and you're 9 hours out of phase with the office at home, so by the time you're waking up they're already gone home. They cannot ring you. And while there is a lot to see and do, and onsen baths are especially magical, the best bits are doing nothing or wandering around. Having a bag of cans with the lands in a park in Osaka on Culture Day. Visiting the empty shrines and temples in Kyoto, visiting the Kyoto Rail Museum, getting an onsen bath in Tokyo 3. And the food at the Ryokan was amazing. Climbing Mt. Masan, getting fat and going broke in Osaka. Walking down a main street in Osaka which had been closed to traffic to switch on fairy lights or something. I kind of want to overnight on Miyajima and maybe spend more time in Osaka next time. It's just such an easy and stress-free place to visit. Humble Potato said, Agree. I've got some Russian ancestry, spoke a few sentences in Russian at the time and looked Slavic enough to fit in, but I went for the first time with a group from my college of 8 people and a guide and we all were treated really well. One thing I always thought was hilarious was people in Moscow, SPB, and the cities we visited all said just be careful around the provincial people, they aren't as accustomed to foreigners, and visiting the small towns people were very friendly and said careful around the Muscovites and city people, they aren't as kind as the rest of Russia. Lodestone 123 said, Don't undersell the beaches, though. Having gorgeous beaches literally to yourself, plus a few kangaroos at Depot Beach, IIRC, is a rare thing. You Aussies. Friendly, upbeat, energetic, humorous, fit. Even your cops are friendly, and not armed and armored like RoboCops. Scenery. Okay, you have to work a bit and pick and choose for this one, as Australia has tons of land, flat, dry nothing, and it is huge. Same size and general dimensions as the USA. Dumbest question we kept getting when we visited Sydney, Melbourne, Tasmania was, did you go see Uluru? No, it was like 1,500 miles away. It's like asking someone who visited New York, did you see the Grand Canyon? Anyway, the 12 Apostles are ridiculous. A picture I took there is still my screensaver. Tasmania fascinating, Sydney Harbour breathtaking, Melbourne lovely. Wildlife. Sure, most of it is trying to kill you, but kangaroos, koalas, echidnas, wallabies, Tasmanian devils, penguins, and quaggas are adorable, and some of these are just wandering about, in full view. Weather. Yeah, it's too fucking hot in the summer. But, sunny and not at all windy works for touring. Familiarity. As a Seppo, when other Americans ask me about Australia, I like to say, it's like America, only better. You drive on the wrong side of the road, but speaking the same language, sort of, and having a similar culture and infrastructure goes a long way toward a relaxing vacation. Anon 565,565 said, China, I've been a few times with work and always loved it. The food is really diverse and tasty and there's so much to see. Generally the people leave you alone but are friendly if you ask anything. There's lots to see and it's all unique and different to anywhere else. Beijing was probably the worst place there due to the pollution, but Shanghai, Shenzhen and Guangzhou are all great. I understand completely why people wouldn't want to visit due to the things currently happening there, but judging it purely based on how much I enjoyed my time there, I'd love to go again. Ander3 Jones 13 said. It was such an amazing holiday and was 34 degrees Celsius so hot. Getting to the Citadel when you were overweight in any weather is murder, worth it though, and the history is beyond compelling. Terror Haza is such an emotional journey with all the faces around on plaques in the tank and the foyer blew me away. The torture chambers were awful to think of what went on in there. The medieval themed restaurant was fun but I loved Vern restaurant more. This was a long time ago so it must be very different now. The only thing that really shocked me was the elderly homeless. One lady who was at least in her mid-80s and so hunched over and was about 3 feet tall and she was begging. I really wanted to help but the asshat I was with wouldn't let me. She was probably there when the country was occupied. It broke my heart. Merloom J5 said. Unpopular opinion, India some common stereotypes. It is dirty yes, in some places. If you've been to Paris or New York, you'll have no trouble in India. It is dangerous for foreigners yes, in some places just like any other place in the world. It is exaggerated mostly by British media. But Mumbai and Delhi are not ideal places to be. You will get sick due to the hygiene. Keep washing your hands, carry a sanitizer. Try to not eat from a street restaurant. Not that it is bad but foreigners don't have the immune system or familiarity for the spices which are often aggressively added in street food. Unknown facts. India has everything. Deserts, beaches, mountains, icy mountains, tropical stuff, thick green forest, cold thick green forests. Check out these states. Uttarakhand, Nagaland plus other northeastern states. Vietnam type green forests with cold weather. Ladakh and Kerala. Avoid Delhi, Mumbai or other big cities. If you want to see skyscrapers and modern stuff, visit New York. There is a city where it is always raining in northeast India. Check out Wasinram. There is a lot to discover. The world's first globally recognized university was in India. Check out Taxila University and Nalanda University. Goa has nice beaches. If you travel from across a few states, you will feel like you are in another country. Different food, different language. Edit. In 2015, I think, BBC yes, named Chandigarh a perfect city in the world. Chandigarh has changed a lot since then but here's the article. Rafat has said. Costa Rica, it is a beautiful country that has got to be my favorite vacation spot. The rooms at the resort I stayed at were like houses that came with AC and complimentary internet access that was pretty good. The beaches were amazing as the sand was so smooth and the waves were absolutely massive so you could have a great time surfing or just treading water and letting them push you around. Costa Rica is also where I discovered my favorite cocktail, the Piña Colada. I also enjoyed the food there as they would have freshly cooked food with different specials every day. Of course it would repeat if you stayed there long enough. But it was different for the couple weeks I was there. Oh, and there was also a bunch of iguanas, crabs, monkeys, tropical birds and fruit trees that were all around the resort. Additionally, every night a different band would come and play traditional Costa Rican music by the pool. I know this is getting long, but I'd also like to talk about the coral reefs that were available off the coast to snorkel and where you could see all sorts of marine life including a couple sea turtles. And finally, you can encounter wild dolphins while out on a boat ride that will actually follow your boat around and play with it. Quite an amazing spectacle. Lunatic Poison said. For me it has to be Turkey, definitely. I absolutely adore Middle Eastern culture and Turkey is modern by still being cultural. It's a wonderful mix in my opinion. If you want to visit Turkey, don't only go to Istanbul, the country has much more to offer. You can go to Istanbul of course but there are more cities that are as beautiful. For example, Izmir, Konya, and the city that contains the Trojan ruins, don't know the name though. Wonderful beaches, above all in the southern part of the country, Bodrum, Antalya, Alanya. Beautiful architecture. It's a Muslim country, yes. However, apart from the beautiful mosques, you will also find old architecture from for example the Byzantine Empire, Ephesus or Cappadocia. Beautiful landscape. While other Middle Eastern countries are mostly covered in desert, Turkey isn't. I don't know how to describe it, other than just beautiful. Polite and helpful locals. The only problem here could be that English isn't as widespread as in other European countries, so communication sometimes can be a bit hard but there's always a way to describe what you want to say. Sabrina Rock said. Belgium. The 2 years I lived there were the best I've ever had in my life. The people are friendly, the language is wonderful. Yet not too complicated as German, the accent is music to one's ears of being so foreign yet Sexy. Also have to compliment the delicious food and fries, which aren't French at all. They're Belgian, and are also called frietjes, not frieten, as in the Netherlands. People live such calm lives there, outside Brussels, but it's not too slow as it may seem. They've got many festivals throughout the year and it can become pretty entertaining during the night. The fact that they have 3 languages, and thus cultures, makes it easier for them to receive foreigners, additionally with the limited size of the country and not many inhabitants. Intellectually, the history of this tiny country is inspiring and very interesting to study, especially the relations with nearby countries. I go there at least once a year, and it'll always have a secure, warm place in my heart. Having friends from there helps. Princess Eli Cherry said, Ecuador is incredible. It is like 4 countries in one. Quito is one of the most beautiful cities I have ever walked around. It has the Amazon. It has volcanoes. It has beautiful beaches with incredible surf. Some of the beaches are covered with these gorgeous pebbles. The people are so incredibly friendly and helpful. Yes, Guayaquil felt sketchy and I wouldn't walk around Quito too late at night, but I felt so safe everywhere else. Also, if you have the money, the Galapagos are a 2-hour plane ride, and that is hands down the most wild place I have ever been. Literally wild. There are sea lions just laying about everywhere you go. Miss Jidden said, Poland. I get weird looks from locals, expats, and non-Poles when I say this, but I had a great time. Everyone I met was so friendly and hilarious. Warsaw is a very openly sarcastic city. I love it. The food scene is outstanding. The flat I rented was palatial for an amazing price, and it's really easy to get around the country by train. There are so many beautiful places to visit and so much history and art beyond the 20th century catastrophes. I think because of the war and the Soviets, people give it a worse reputation than it deserves, but this place is seriously underrated. The politics aren't great, but I've lived and read State America long enough to not be that shocked by it. There's a larger percentage of the Polish population that supports women's rights, compared to America. And the way people openly talk about the Catholic Church has me convinced Poland will be like Ireland in a few years. G.I. Joe PFC said, TL, DR, Canada, Ireland, and I'd include Iceland, but it's just ridiculously pricey. Canada, what a fun country to be in. I went with 2 friends my senior year of HS, got shit-faced, met some awesome people bar hopping and going to clubs, and also the natural beauty of Canada is astounding. Ireland, took my girlfriend of maybe 2 months on this trip. I had already planned it before we met and dipped into my enlistment bonus to buy her plane ticket. First time she told me she loved me was in a Spanish tapas place in Dublin called Salamanca. Even though my phone got stolen by a cab driver and we left a bag of Christmas gifts on a bus, amazingly enough we got all the gifts back. It was one of the best trips of my life and also my first trip to Europe without any family. The natural beauty of the country again is just amazing. If you find yourself in Ireland, I highly recommend the Cliffs of Moher, Giant's Causeway, Carrick Reed Bridge, and the Guinness Brewery. Grumpy Hedgehog said, Yeah. I've been paying taxes to the US government for 20 years now. In that time frame my government has killed literally hundreds of thousands of Muslims, mostly for dumb reasons. I don't blame myself because, well, it's not like anyone ever asks me how my taxes should be spent. China is not some tiny island dictatorship where every dollar you spend makes its way into the pockets of El Presidente. Her policies have huge inertia. The idea that you should deny yourself a trip because what little money you end up spending might percolate up to the policy-setting echelons of government just seems like pointless self-flagellation at best and virtue signaling at worst. Enjoy Peach Kibler said, I've been to some incredible places, many of which I'll visit again. One that I'd really like to visit again at some point is El Salvador. My wife and I went 12 or 13 years ago. The country has big problems, but it's beautiful, the people are kind and funny, the food is incredible. I think the reason El Salvador really stands out to me is it's such a rough place, and that roughness is visible, especially in San Salvador. It never makes the lists of places you have to travel to, but it was a worthwhile trip that has stuck with me. It has a charm all its own. Up people said, New Zealand. The South Island in particular, but it's all great. A lot of space and not a lot of people makes for good exploring. The locals are friendly and helpful. Went there with no plans other than the first night and had a great time just going where we wanted. lakes, mountains, glaciers, fjords, and other interesting geography. Plus penguins and other interesting wildlife. But honestly, most countries I would return to. I'm more interested in the ones I haven't seen yet. Thieberman said. Israel great food, both Middle Eastern as well as European, Asian or South American cuisine due to the ethnic diversity of the population. The people are extremely welcoming and pretty much everyone speaks good English. Despite of what you might hear in the media, Israel is a safe country to travel in. I never felt unsafe even once. The country is very high-tech. You find public Wi-Fi spots pretty much everywhere. The public transportation is great. Most signs are trilingual, Hebrew, Arabic and English. The country is full of history, great for a nerd like me. There's ruins of Roman castles, ancient churches and watchtowers of crusaders and stuff like that. Nature is pretty awesome there as well. The beer there isn't good though in my opinion. But the wine is nice and cheap. Cabbage Festival said. New Zealand. Paradise on earth in every way possible. There are no wild animals and snakes in the entire region so you can walk around forests without worrying about your life. Almost every city there is a coastal city or is close proximity to one. So you never have to worry about dry weather. The international food there isn't modified to suit local flavor, hence you will find authentic international food there. Locals are comparatively relaxed and chill and accepting of other communities. Most importantly, white people actually acknowledge the injustice they did to locals in that country, unlike denialists in other countries. Hence, the local Maoris not only got reparations from the British government, but still get a lot of benefits. This is one country where racism against colored people is taken seriously.